We've discussed the different conceptions of divine justice in the ancient world and have seen that this is a thorny problem with many pitfalls. The Divine Comedy represents a kind of theodicy that explains God's justice. Although the mundane world is full of apparent injustices, these will all be punished in the afterlife. This is demanded by God's power and wisdom. On the inscription of the gates of hell, it's written, quote, "Justice moved my heavenly constructor, divine omnipotence created me, and highest wisdom joined with primal love." Thus hell was created by the demands of justice to punish the sinful. God's infinite power has made this possible, and his infinite wisdom has ensured that justice is done in the case of each and every individual. Dante thus takes upon himself the enormous task of developing a detailed and systematic theory of divine justice in his account of the punishments in hell. He portrays the entire spectrum of sin and thus develops a corresponding theory of justice and punishment to fit the different levels of culpability. Needless to say, this is a tremendously ambitious undertaking that's often underestimated. Just recall that in some of the other works that we've discussed, the idea of divine justice was a mysterious matter. It was impossible to make sense of why the evil people seemed to profit and the good seemed to be punished. This was the question that Job asks with some urgency. For the Babylonians, there was only a vague sense of divine justice, whereas most of the time the gods seemed spiteful and impetuous. Similarly, the Greek gods were quickly offended and behaved like children. Given this background, it's now a major undertaking that Dante sets for himself to paint a vivid picture of the nature of divine justice in its finest details. In a sense, Augustine can be seen as a forerunner of Dante, since he attempts to defend Christianity and explain God's often hidden justice in the context of the sack of Rome, but he does not enter into the kind of specificity that Dante does with regard to the individual sins. Dante's ambitious project implies, of course, that he knows what divine justice is, in contrast to the ancient pagan authors who believed in the concept in some vague way, but were unable to develop a consistent theory of it. This might be taken to be characteristic for a general contrast between the ancient and the medieval world. The ancient pre-Socratic authors raised the question about truth. They wanted to investigate the universe in order to learn about it. Socrates continued on this path. Similarly, even the writers of history and literature whom we've studied can be seen as pursuing the goal of discovering the truth. This changes with the Middle Ages. Now, it's thought that the truth already has been discovered. With Aristotle, the secular truths of science and philosophy have been determined. For this reason, in this period, scholars tended not to write new or ostensibly original philosophical treatises, but instead to write commentaries to the works of Aristotle. There was no pretension of presenting something new. Now the task became simply to understand the truth as it appeared in Aristotle's text. The other pillar of truth in the medieval world was, of course, Christianity, which represented the revealed truth of religion. The revelation of Christ is a key dogma in the Christian religion, and it means that Christ reveals himself as divine. This means that something is known, that is the opposite of something being unknown and mysterious. Dante belongs to this tradition. By depicting in poetic form the details of divine justice, he's making the bold claim that, contrary to the ancient view, this is something that can be known and understood by human beings.